So what is ubiquitous assimilation?
Always absorbing everything everywhere all the time.
Well done, George. How are you to imagine anything if the images are always provided for you? Who here read 1984 last year? To deliberately believe in lies while knowing they're false. This is a marketing holocaust. 24 hours a day. For the rest of our lives, the powers that be are hard at work, dumbing us to death. So, to defend ourselves and fight against assimilating this dullness into our thought processes, we must learn to read, to stimulate our own imaginations, to cultivate our own consciousness, our own belief systems. We all need these skills to defend, to preserve our own minds.
Happy heresies, and welcome to the desert of the real. Blasphemy shouldn't be this much of an amusement park, a joyride through the heavens of vital freedom. The dictionary calls blasphemy an, quote, impious utterance or action concerning God or sacred things. Of course, any free thinking or deep spirituality, by default, always raises the hackles of Jehovah and his slaves in the terra damnata. Thus I lean towards Paul Rudnick when he said, "There is only one blasphemy, and that is the refusal to see joy." And that joy is our weekly odyssey here at Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio, through the gnashing rocks of orthodoxy, all the way to the farther shores of imagination, where we can encounter the knowledge of our divinity.
You are not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. You're not your fucking khakis.
Maybe joy isn't exactly the right word, but perhaps bliss in the Eastern sense. Or perhaps a quiet, giggling ecstasy when you've discovered a wonder you just can't explain. Or perhaps that wonderful exhale after you found out you just might be on the right path all along, to wherever you need to go to be a truer version of yourself. We are the Gnostics, the veterans of 1,000 psychic wars, who have set the controls to the heart of the sun. Divided we stand, together we rise. We are the eternal passerbyers of the Gospel of Thomas, the modern-day Tom Sawyers who never stop asking questions until we fall into the forbidden catacombs of the deeper levels of truth, where our curiosity is deemed, well, blasphemy.
A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible.
The world has always hated us. Our sanity has always been in question. And our napalm poetry lights up the heavens with the infernal fire of forgotten gods. And just as we machine gun questions, we never stop searching for the higher realities and the mysteries that work for us and only us. Like Robert Ingersoll said, "Give me the storm and tempest of thought and action, rather than the dead calm of ignorance and faith. Banish me from Eden when you will, but first let me eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge." And it was Clark Emery who famously said in Gnostic circles, "The awakening of any individual is a cosmic event." And it is I who very infamously in Gnostic circles said, "The awakening of any individual is a cosmic rebellion."
You clearly don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in. I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger.
On this approximately October, sometime in the beginning of October, the year of our Demiurge 2014, we continue our sacred and profane mission of teaching you that the best way to defeat the creator gods is to create better than them. That the best way to have gnosis is to let the eternal song of Hagia Sophia flow through you and splash onto the canvas of reality with your own personal reboot or take. Like the great Colin Wilson said, imagination should be not to escape reality, but to create it. And as I, very infamously in all circles say, write your own gospel, live your own myth.
By the power of truth, I, while living, have conquered the universe.
Oh, and who am I? I am you. And I am Abraxas, that terrible god above god as the ancients knew him. That rooster-headed solar logos.
Sticking feathers up your butt does not make you a chicken.
Okay, but in my space monkey incarnation, I am known as Miguel Connor, broadcasting in the lawful but frigid dystopia of Chicago, patiently waiting for the beginning of the world, and hoping to be as cool as Bill Nye.
Why, oh why didn't I take the blue pill?
Getting back to our topic, we take a bit of a detour in this eternal now, and have on the show a musician, and what a singular musician. One who not only spreads his gnosis through his music, as well as an Orpheus on blue crystal meth, but has been directly influenced by Gnostic heresy. That is Shawn McMahon, the force behind Workman's song. When Shawn reached out to me with his music, I was immediately hooked by his talent, insight, and how he captured the Gnostic ethos of alienation, playful speculation, and deep, deep knowing of the unknown. Like Edmund Lupiere said, ears to hear, eyes to see. That is the tragic ability of the Gnostic. Shawn has that tragic ability, as you will see in the interview, and his music played right after the interview. So stick around. For more information on Shawn and Workman's song, please visit, you got it, workmansong.com.
Once again, things that could have been brought to my attention yesterday!
Not much else, my beloved truth seekers. A lot going on in the Hylic worlds, including getting the new GodAboveGod.com website up. Voices of Gnosticism 2, which is back in play again, with the help of the previous publisher, my friend Andrew Phillips Smith, and other heretical sundries. No rest for the wicked, as they say. But please support Aeon Byte in any way you can. A few shekels here and there, or any type of support you can conceive. Please don't forget to support my Patreon campaign, where you donate every time I produce. And together we can continue growing the endless soundtrack of the counterculture. One of the greatest heretical communities in the history of the multiverse.
It's like God's vagina.
Just go to patreon.com/Aeon Byte, or just check out the banner at the website. Your support is essential, and much appreciation to you Time Lords who support this blasphemy on a weekly basis. I thank you from the bottom of my black heart. Soon, in time, you will soar above all material illusion into the tender arms of Sophia. That is the promise of Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio. You shall do so many wonders in and beyond life and death. I just know it. I just know it.
I know we're all afraid. But my father told me, someday, someone was gonna have to take a stand. Someday, someone was gonna have to say enough. This could be that day. Trust your senses.
Before our interview with Shawn McMahon, how about the 10 Principles of Gnostic Christianity by Philip K. Dick? 1. The creator of this world is demented. 2. The world is not as it appears, in order to hide the evil in it, a delusive veil obscuring it and the deranged deity. 3. There is another, better realm of God, and all our efforts are to be directed toward A. Returning there, B. Bringing it here. 4. Our actual lives stretch thousands of years back, and we can be made to remember our origins in the stars.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
5. Each of us has a divine counterpart, unfallen, who can reach a hand down to awaken us. This other personality is the authentic waking self. The one we have now is asleep and minor. We are in fact asleep and in the hands of a dangerous magician disguised as a good god, the deranged creator deity. The bleakness, the evil and pain in this world, the fact that it is a deterministic prison controlled by the demented creator, causes us willingly to split with the reality principle early in life, and so to speak willingly fall asleep in delusion.
Everything is backwards now. Like out there is the true world, and in here is the dream.
6. You can pass from the delusional prison world into the peaceful kingdom if the true God places you under His grace and allows you to see reality through His eyes. 7. Christ gave, rather than received, revelation. He taught His followers how to enter the kingdom while still alive, where other mystery religions only bring about amnesis, knowledge of it and the, quote, other time, in, quote, the other realm, not here. He causes it to come here and is the living agency to the sole good God, i.e., the Logos. 8. Probably the real, secret Christian church still exists, long underground, with the living Corpus Christi as its head or ruler, the members absorbed into it. Through participation in it, they probably have vast, seemingly magical powers.
Everyone who has fought an agent has died, but where they have failed, you will succeed.
Why?
Their strength and their speed are still based in a world that is built on rules. Because of that, they will never be as strong or as fast as you can be.
9. The division into 2 times, good and evil, and 2 realms, good and evil, will abruptly end with victory for the good time here, as the presently invisible kingdom separates and becomes visible. We cannot know the date. 10. During this time period, we are on the shifting bridge being judged according to which power we give allegiance to, the deranged creator demiurge of this world, or the one good God and His kingdom, whom we know through Christ. And lastly, Philip K. Dick did say, to know these 10 principles of Gnostic Christianity is to court disaster.
This is the Aeon Byte interview, and with us we definitely have the pleasure of being joined by Shawn McMahon,
to discuss his musical work with a very powerful Gnostic tinge and sensibility and vibe. How are you doing today, Shawn?
I am doing quite well, Miguel. How are you?
I'm doing great. Again, thanks for joining us. So to get started, why don't we start with a little bit about you? Looks like some people are having fun behind you.
I live in a communal space in North Brooklyn, and while I'm in my little private nook here, everyone else is out there. It's about 1 p.m. That means it's wake up time. Everyone's having breakfast.
Oh, well, sounds good. Sounds great. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and how you entered into the esoterica.
All right. Well, like many of these things, it's not exactly a straight shoot. My father's from Ireland, and he married a Bostonian Jewess, so I had two dueling strands of religion in my DNA, so to speak, and on that account, on account of how difficult it was for them to get married in Ireland where they met, they made a decision to raise me without religion. So I think I was lucky to have kind of a free thinker's childhood. It was pretty easy for me to just come up with my own questions about what was going on in reality. So I started developing a tendency towards visual art when I was young, and I would just kind of draw Batman in all sorts of weird metaphysical situations. And I would say, because of that superhero thing, or whenever the hell The Matrix came out, that was, I'm 26 now, so I was a kid when that movie came out, and I just felt, along with many people of my generation, it just struck a chord with me. I was like, there's something going on here. I know there's an invisible world. It's probably just not our heads literally jacked into like a metal tentacle, but it stimulated my my imagination, because that movie kind of gives you a template for imagining otherworldly, invisible realities with its spectacular visuals. So I would say that I saw The Matrix as very stimulating to the imagination. I think it helps you conceive of the way reality could work in a very kind of caricaturish way. When you're wondering why evil happens in the world, why there are paradoxes, well, there might be a program, there might be some laws, and then there might be some unseen hands working, So I was just saying that I think in a way that was our generation's initiations into this kind of stuff. I consider that like a generational entry point into the esoteric studies.
Yeah, well said, an initiation of our culture. And then that led you on a search to other things. What did you find?
Yeah, well, a few years later, I never really pursued this. I think this is another interesting point, because I do consider a lot of this like cultural and generational. The tip of the iceberg, or whatever the hell the saying is was being in college and just being a stupid kid who liked to smoke pot, and I couldn't find the pot that I wanted to find from the dude that I usually got it from. And so I just searched on the internet for legal weed alternatives and stumbled across something called Salvia divinorum. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, or if any of us should actually admit to any of this on the radio. But at any rate, I thought it was just, a marijuana alternative that was legal and going to get delivered to my doorstep because I was that stupid and lazy. And the end of story there is that no, it's not in any way in the same league as marijuana. It'll make you just trip balls for about 15 minutes. And that was probably the first and last time I ever used a psychedelic, but it was such a profound divorce from subjective reality. It was a full-on hallucination, and I just was blown over that such a thing was possible, that you can just imbibe something, and you can just be catapulted into a whole other world. And it's not too different from going to sleep and being catapulted into a whole other world. So that experience triggered directly my pursuit of studying these topics in writing. So that's when I went to the library and just camped out in the world religions section, because I was convinced that that's where I would find narratives written by people who dealt with these kinds of things.
And how did you enter into Gnosticism? You say you've studied the Nag Hammadi library.
Yep. Okay. Well, actually, yeah, interesting coincidence is that while I was up there, with like 3 to 5 books in a pile from each religion, from Hinduism, from Buddhism, from Sikhism, from Judaism, from Christianity. This was about 2005, 2006, and that was when the Gospel of Judas was first published. So again, that was another generational initiation. It's like this 3-pronged wake-up call. There's all sorts of doorways available, apparently, if you want to be a nutcase like us.
Yeah, we all are at this show.
Yeah, so, in this case, it was a little bit of everything for me. So, that Gospel of Judas really turned me on, because one of my favorite movies had been The Last Temptation of Christ by Scorsese. And if you haven't seen it, you should, because it's the only time you're going to see Jesus and his disciples portrayed by New Yorkers. It's awesome. It's hilarious. So yeah, that was my entry point into Gnosticism, and I discovered that you could read the entire Nag Hammadi corpus at gnosis.org. So I started reading those and listening to all the free lectures by Stephen Heller, and that was my entry point into Gnosticism via the Nag Hammadi.
And on a parallel way, tell us a little bit about your musical influences and how you became a musician, and then we can talk how they joined together in this your present persona.
Yeah, for sure. Really, it was pretty simple. I grew up in a house that was just always blaring music. My mom was really into the Beatles and Cat Stevens and Neil Young. My dad was really into Black Sabbath and Rory Gallagher and all like the prog folk revivals that happened in the 70s with like Pentangle and Solas and all that. So, it was brewing in my system for a while. And one day when I was in middle school, I saw a kid I know up on stage playing Iron Man at the talent show, and I went up to him after. I'm like, "Hey man, what you did, that seems like something that is possible to do, because I saw you do it. Is that possible to do?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I mean, yeah, basically. I'm not sure why you're asking in that weird way, but yes, it's possible. I'm like, so my older brother has a guitar. All I have to do is just like touch it and the noise comes out. He's like, yeah, of course. But I don't know, for some weird reason, it just never crossed my mind that that's something I could do. So I went home, asked my older brother if I could play his guitar, and it was an electric guitar, and like the bug bit me. I think I spent like the first 5 hours of my life playing guitar, trying to figure out how to play the riff from Shove It by the Deftones. It was awesome.
And then how did you go becoming a full-fledged musician?
It was kind of just a done deal. As soon as I played guitar, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I just pursued every avenue of musical study I could. I was in a high school with a good music program, and I was always a rocker, so I would have never got into doing stuff like being in a choir and learning to read sheet music and learning music theory. But I had a teacher there who convinced me that I'd be an idiot if I didn't, and I'm lucky, you know, he was a really good teacher, and he encouraged me and kind of made me feel like, you know, it was possible to be a musician, and if you put work into it, and you stayed with it persistently, that, you know, you'll find yourself inheriting a music career from your past endeavors, so to speak. So I've just been chipping away at it for a while. I've played in a lot of bands, and you know, I went to music school in New England Conservatory in Boston, and when I got out, I moved to New York City and just been doing the thing, recording and playing and touring, and yeah, kind of slow and easy, kind of just playing the tortoise here, you know.
And your band is called Workman Song?
Workman Song, correct.
Mm-hmm. And when were they founded?
Well, it's a solo project. I started producing music under that alias actually not too long ago, in about April or May of 2013. And prior to that, all my solo work was just released under my own name. And I've worked with a bunch of bands here and there, Counterpoint, Tidwell's Treasure. In New York, I've worked with Bird Courage, currently working with Streets of Laredo.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I really liked your music. It really resonated with me immediately. I said that there was, who do people compare you to? I mean, on the surface, it seems you have a Bob Dylan-esque sort of vibe. But, of course, you don't have, you go beyond the Christian tones. There's a lot of Gnosticism and Marcionite themes in it. Is this something you put in on purpose, or how does the process go? It just comes out?
Well, yeah. Yeah. You're asking me about the process of writing, you mean?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Usually, I just sit down with my guitar, and a guitar part comes into my mind, and some words and some feelings, and honestly, when that stuff is coming out, when that more mystical, esoteric stuff is coming out, it's just it's a default setting, and I don't mean that so much like, I joke that it's something I fall back on, but actually there's kind of a sense of purpose involved. Like, I believe in writing a love song or a fun song or whatnot, but it wasn't always that easy for me. I was the kind of songwriter that was always trying to make each song the most important fucking song in the world, trying to save the world one song at a time. And that's a tendency that I kind of learned to make peace with and not fully overcome and not totally eliminate, but integrate into a more free-minded and lighthearted approach. So basically all I'm saying is that if I'm sitting down to write about the pretty girl down the block who, gave me a look, then I tripped over my shoelaces, and then I fell into the sidewalk and descended into the depths through the various hells, and, found myself at the lowest point. Just as I fell through that, suddenly I'm not falling through hell anymore. I'm just I was conceiving it all as upside down. I mean, I was just kind of free flowing on that, but I like those ideas. I like taking the surreal imagery of everyday life and bending it and twisting it, and essentially when you do that, you're gonna come into these themes because you're already dealing in surrealism with perceptions of reality, and this is how the study of Gnosticism, the study of mysticism and religion, it's the language, both verbal and intuitive, that I've learned with which to speak about these things.
Oh, I agree, and I think what resonates with your music is that, and I've talked to other guests, is, for example, in the 60s and 70s, people were, or 80s, all the time, people are rebelling against institutions. They're questioning. They're trying to break things down and deconstruct. But there's always a sense they have a little bit of trust in church or the government or some institution. But with the Gnostic sensibility, it seems there's an alienation as well, but there's a complete distrust in reality. This time you're tackling reality itself as in the Matrix, you're breaking down reality. And isn't that what your music seems to do?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, yeah, I have an interesting relationship with institutional religion because I wasn't brought up with it, and there's a time when I tried to go for it, to get into it, not too long ago, as a result of like my religious studies. And what I didn't realize, not being brought up in church, is that there really is a massive gulf between what's being said and taught in the Nag Hammadi version of Christianity versus mainstream Christianity. I literally was so naive that I did not understand that. My gateway into understanding Christianity was Gnosticism and Jewish mysticism, on account of the way I studied everything in this topsy-turvy way. So, the point being, I think it's really natural to crave that type of spiritual community. I think humans in general want to have community, and as spiritual beings, we want it to be spiritually nourishing. I currently, here in Brooklyn, I work at one church as a musician called Bushwick Abbey, and it's quite progressive, and it's progressive precisely because it's included that element of alienation from institution and power structures into its narrative, and it's it's a queer church, it's a punk church, it's an anarchist Christian Episcopalian church, of course.
Wow.
Yeah, so the point being, that's what I'm involved in. That's the only church institution I'm involved with, and I'm involved with that as a musician, and I get spiritual nourishment from it. But the lesson I learned is that it would be hard to be in a church if I wasn't a musician, and similarly, just to bring it all around, doing music is my spiritual work. It's my spiritual food. It's the only way I'm really going to make a religion out of my life. It's really the only religion I got. Religion in the sense of it's the only thing that ties things together. So for sure, the fact that I'm talking about these things, these Gnostic things, these mystical things, these kind of revelatory things, these kind of, it gets into politics too, in subtle ways, because I do talk a lot about the powers that be, in some songs we do go into straight up archon terminology, but the stage is my pulpit, but I don't fully believe in the pulpit either. I think music is medicinal, and I think what spiritual community really looks like is just, a big, well, I can't think of an image that comes to mind, but it's like a big fucking cauldron of medicine and medicinal beings, people who are aware of their gifts and using them. That's it. It's just, like a free association. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I understand. I mean, as some have said, rock music and concerts is as close as we're going to get to a mystery religion / shamanistic experience in this culture. And it's interesting because one of my favorite bands is Jane's Addiction, and my daughter, who's 17, just saw Jane's Addiction last night here at Riot Fest in Chicago. And the way she described it, she was initiated into the same stream. And what's also interesting is, going again back to the themes in your music and how music was different, is you, and I bring up Fight Club because Fight Club goes directly at God. And this is something Bob Dylan and the 60s people wouldn't do. But in the Gnostic sensibility, isn't it where you just go directly to God and to the powers that be and say, all right, I've exposed you. What's going on? Isn't that what you ask in a lot of your songs, like Varmint and Eden?
Yeah, precisely. Good call. Yeah. Songs like that, I'm dealing with a lot of things. I mean, one, I can't emphasize, there's some grandiose shit going on in my music for sure. But it's also just fun too, So a song like Varmint, it really is, it is a dialogue between myself and this imaginary asshole, because sometimes you just sit down and it's some weird natural human thing that happens, but you sit down to write a song and what you end up writing is just a barrage of insults, which is awesome. It's like a great way to exercise your tongue and your brain. But, again, this other influence comes out where we're just, we're dealing with themes of basic human stuff. So if you as a narrator are human and you're insulting some invisible adversary, imaginary adversary, just like, hashtag Carl Gustav Jung, and then you suddenly realize what you're dealing with. Everything's a microcosm. So these songs they're microcosmic studies of these things, and a lot of it is very confrontational. I mean, I'm very pissed off that the world is so fucked up, and I'm very sad about it as well. And so me being both of those characters, I'm sad at the sad angry person. I'm angry at the sad angry person that both are myself. So it's hard to describe, but it's kind of like if you engage in a dialogue with anything, it's a reflection of your dialogue with God. And I think a lot of that music is pretty confrontational, a lot of it is just asking what the fuck is going on here, and I would say it's not pessimistic either. It's like, we have to ask this question: what the hell is going on here? What are we doing here? Because we got to sort this out, and we can.
Right, and it seems sometimes maybe the dialogue is the answer, or the gnosis, or the best will do. And of course we can go back to the Nag Hammadi library or the Gospel of Thomas, where these are these dialogues, and it seems it's between two selves, Jesus and Thomas, and a hierophant and a student, and they're trying to figure these out. And through the dialogue, that's where the ritual comes. And you have some powerful themes. I was reminded of your song, No It's Not, and you're sort of talking about these terrible things in Jesus, and you say your answer is simply to let the colors wash out. I mean, I touched his wounds and I saw his face. I spill my colors onto the floor like a newborn babe onto the earth. Sometimes that's the only answer, right? Just to spill it all out, have a dialogue.
Yeah, precisely. And the interesting thing about that lyric, the next lyric is, I thought it was righteous, but no, it's not. That song has a long history. When I first wrote that, probably 10 years ago, I thought what I was saying was I'm sick of just living sloppy and searching, kind of that was during that time when I had my flirtation with psychedelics and all that stuff, and I was like, this is no way, you can't just find God just by running around this way. But the meaning has since changed for me, which is, it's a little more kind of along the lines of what you're saying, which is, to me now when I hear that lyric, I thought that it was righteous. It's actually just the answer is no, it's not. That's the lyric. I thought that it was righteous, but no, it's not. The question of righteousness is just kind of a moot point, because, and the simplest way to put it is, there's a difference between obeying the letter of the law, including the letters of your own mental laws, which get real messy and tangled, versus, following your heart. So it's not that spilling your colors onto the floor is the correct thing to do, but it's beyond correct and incorrect. It's kind of the only thing to do. That's all you got. You have to be passionate. You have to pour yourself out, for sure.
Yeah, sometimes that's all we can do, especially in this world. I mean, it's a Philip K. Dick world. It's a Gnostic world where all realities are just falling apart right before our eyes, and we're wondering what to do. And tell us about the song, The Adversary and the Friend. That's short lyrics, but it's very powerful.
Oh, thanks, man. That would be hard to describe, to explicate, but, that is... It's definitely a dialogue with a lover, very explicitly. It's also a dialogue with the self. To me, that song is about. It's kind of an allegory for the process of letting go of your sense of self, of your sense of personal needs. It's about the work. It's about the spiritual work. But again, it's very much about a lover, and it's very much also about God. But I just had this idea in my head about if you love something, then you draw a line around it, and you have to kind of protect it from the rest of the world, which you by default start to hate. So the first line is just establishing the opposite. If I blind my eyes to my love, I can't protect you with my hate. So maybe you are the adversary and the friend. I think that'd be an interesting exercise to try out at the UN. I'd love to see that happen.
So we can get them away from their cocktail parties and long speeches. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
And your song also, Eden, of course, that's a very powerful archetype or notion. I like this part where you say, and I want to take you with me. The engine's getting louder, so it must be time for us to go. So let us head home back to Eden. Forward is the way. And if we carry all the wounded and stay pure as little children, then we will get through this night of darkness and be home by the break of day. That's very powerful. What is the song about?
It's about the dream. It's about I had a dream. It's about that. It's just about the promised land. I definitely believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I hope that we get to see it in this world, and I'm hoping personally that that's what all the prophetic books are about. But yeah, the engine's getting louder. It just means the train's coming. And if we bear one another's burdens and we don't, try to eliminate the weak or take down the strong, but work together, and what it means to stay pure as a little child. Just go back to your heart. Yeah, that's all that one's about. Just getting home. The only thing that I thought probably the most conscious decision in that verse for me was to say forward is the way, because a lot of times we conceive of going back to Eden, and going back to some original splendor, going back to your child self, and I think it's important to as people living in, this is way mystical, but we're in the mystical zone here, Miguel. So I think it's important to live in the duality a little bit, and to look at our metaphors and be kind of like proactive about them. Like, let's not just take for granted that reality is kind of like a snake biting its own tail, but like, let's look forward, and let's go forward to Eden rather than back.
And in, for example, in the Gnostic Gospels or Gnosticism, is there any figure that really, works as a muse or as an inspiration? Many people like me have Mary Magdalene, or maybe call on Sophia, just as an archetype, or like Alan Moore, who made up his own god from some ancient false god. Anybody like that, Shawn?
Yeah, I mean, Jesus figures heavily. He's a character who walks in and out of my music a lot. Adam as well. I'm really fascinated by the idea of like the primordial Adam, and the priest. He comes in and out. Priest with a capital P. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm still. I love to chew every so often on the mystery of Melchizedek. Who the hell was he?
Right, yeah. He's a mysterious guy who weaves in and out of these texts.
Yeah, so he's definitely in the music a lot. He's the eerie other man. He's kind of the boogeyman, actually, in a lot of my music, so to speak. I mean, we're getting a little far out here, but yeah, I mean,
Oh, that's what we do here at this show. Don't worry.
Yeah, totally.
It's always very interesting. And for example, if somebody were to ask you describe, you're talking to some people and they want to describe an archon, what do you tell people are archons? Sometimes you might say it's I'd say it's my ego, it's my dad who hit me a lot, it's the church. What do you tell people? Some people like to say they're aliens. What do you tell people?
Yeah, that's a hilarious thing for me, because I like to just talk about them like they're aliens with my friends, because most of my friends are into the UFO thing. I mean, I don't know. I feel certain that the forces are at work, and that we don't live in a mechanical universe, and that there's definitely consciousness and consciousnesses involved in our day-to-day lives. A friend of mine who's also a great musician, named Reverend Vince Anderson, he was telling me a little bit about this this way of looking at it, in which you just kind of regard the powers that be as literally as possible, and kind of put them in their place and name them, and so, archon just means ruler, and if you look up archon on YouTube, you're going to see a lot of funny videos about reptiles, and
oh yeah,
the president is a dragon and all that.
Queen Elizabeth and all that.
Yeah, it's like, well, the president is a dude, and he's a president, and even if he is a reptile, he's still a reptile dude.
Very true.
And there's a spiritual reality underlying all of that, and the heart of all of it is that, there's a benevolent stream running through everything. So, nothing is beyond the scope of redemption or redemptive dialogue and work. I bear that larger narrative in mind when I'm trying to name the powers, as my friend Vince said, or, as you would say, identify the archons. I think it's a mix of everything. I think we have to kind of let our eyes blur a little bit and just see the basic shapes, so that we can kind of sense what they're coming at us with. And, it still, number one thing is just, where are you at? Because you don't want to, my philosophy is you just always want to be in a position of action rather than reaction. You don't want to. You want to be pretty damn Tai Chi about it,
Right. Oh, I agree with you, Shawn. It's people are always asking, what are the archons? And I tell them, I think what Tolkien said, as soon as you try to dissect or put your finger down on a myth, it dies. But if you let the myth flow, then reality flows with it. So you can't just nail anything down. You got to keep it going, because reality is shifty, and they're shifting things around it. Wouldn't you agree on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had a funny little qualm in my head about talking about this stuff on the show, just because, I think it's important in a weird way that I think it's really important that people know that this stuff exists. Like, I'm definitely an advocate for awareness of, of Gnosticism, and especially of its connections to Christianity. I think Christianity lost a lot by losing this narrative, or mainstream Christianity, I should say. So, similarly, I like to insert it into my music because it can hit you in a different way, and I think in a lot of ways the message can travel better than when we're talking about it explicitly like this. But I think it's important that we're also having this conversation and just getting into the nitty gritty, because it's therapeutic. Like we're just like, what? I mean, that's what a radio show is for. That's what a podcast is for. It's like, what the hell is going on right now, and what are we going to do about it in general?
Yeah, it's different for everybody too.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
What, just on a broader scale, do you see this Gnostic sensibility becoming more common with musicians today and around you, or do you see yourself basically, like the Gnostics is, alone in an island?
That's hard to say. I'm aware of quite a few musicians who incorporate like Judeo-Christian imagery into their music, and because they're kind of more independent-minded or not necessarily religious themselves, I think they do deal with those themes in a similar way because they're dealing with freedom, independence, and liberating their minds. Some people used to be religious, you know. There's a guy named Father John Misty who used to be the drummer for a band called the Fleet Foxes. He incorporates, I would say, ideas like this into his narrative, although I think the language is a little less explicitly Gnostic, you know. But yeah, he's definitely, you know, I think he's done his fair share of mushrooms, and I can't imagine you escape an experience like that without being a little far out. But let me think. There's a musician I discovered named Cass McCombs who seems to be coming from a pretty, you know, not to sound too high-minded about, but pretty educated kind of place with regards to this stuff. Like almost like a rapper, he's name dropping, like just like all, you know, like all the players and lots of Greek mythology and the web he weaves with his imagery. I think is one of the first times my ears perked up when I heard an artist. I'm like, I think this guy's kind of doing what I'm doing, you know? I think he thinks that way. So I think aside from a few exceptions, yeah, I feel like slightly on an island because most of my work in studying this stuff has been pretty independent and free associating and on my own schedule. So it's a little, you know, idiosyncratic, but at the same time, you know, I live with my head up my ass and I don't really know what the hell's going on around me in the music world. So there could be some great shit that I'm missing. You know, I'm way behind. I'm just getting into some of the shit that the people around me have been listening to for like years, you know?
Oh, I hear you. I'm that way too, but I blame it my age. And what about in general rock music, classic rock or anything? Anything for the listener that might not know? Any bands or musicians that really flirted with Gnosticism?
Yeah, Sun Ra. He was huge for me. He is a great, innovative jazz musician from Saturn. He was more in the kind of like comedic, you know, Afrofuturist tradition. I think, you know, I mean, Bob Dylan really did get into his archetypes. I definitely hear that music in that way. Led Zeppelin did Black Magic, so enter into that at your own discretion.
Let's see, of course, yeah, when you're talking about more of the Crowley types, you've got David Bowie. I think the Rolling Stones were into Satanism for a while, so it was definitely out there. And of course, you've got, reminding me again of Fight Club and that Marcionite taking it to God. You've got Roger Waters having conversations and insulting God and saying what's going on. So
yeah,
it weaves here and there, although it's never really been out. Oh, of course, Tori Amos put out an album based on the Nag Hammadi library. That was pretty close. Yeah, it's out there. Anything else you can think of?
No, I mean, you named more bands than electrons went off in my brain just then.
Well, it looks like you're in some sort of zone. So here's of course, this might be a hard question, but I do like to ask my guests this question because there's always an insight that somebody else might get.
Sure.
If somebody asks you what gnosis is, what do you tell them, Shawn?
Generally, the answer is I don't know quite exactly. Just kind of get an elliptical trail off. Depending on what I'd read that week, I'd probably describe it in different terms. Who's that guy? Who's that writer? He writes about this stuff. I think it's Jeremy Puma.
Oh yeah, Jeremy. Yeah, he's a good friend. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one who kind of coined the gnosis without Gnosticism phrase, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Like, you know, I just kind of think of it as kind of just basic human sense, just kind of like pursuit of truth and you know, and realizing it in yourself and the process of living. You know, I try not to think of the ascetic kind of champion Spartan kind of thing. I don't, me personally, my take on it is just, you know, it's whatever's kind of at the heart of things. I guess that's what the gnosis would be. It's just, you know, it's just realization, it's love.
The reality behind reality, the pleroma, the search for the pleroma.
There you are.
So the next question would be, Shawn, this is something I also ask many of the guests, especially artists, writers, musicians, so forth. What advice do you have for budding musicians who really want to express their gnosis out there?
Just do it. Nothing wrong with it. Just be yourself, honestly. You know, figure out what you want to say if you're a lyricist. Have fun writing. Most of the times, if you just let the words come out, they're going to make a lot more sense later on. You know, it's just write. It's better to have like 25 shit songs and one piece of gold than, you know, than worrying about making gold and never making anything, you know. So just dig and find your thing and just do the thing. I would say, actually, this is really important. Just do the thing that makes you happiest, because I would say when you get involved with searching for the truth, sometimes it gets heavy, and I think it's really important not to be too heavy-handed, period. You know, like, you know, life is a beautiful thing, and when you're dealing with stuff like this, it's a heavy message, but you gotta have fun doing it. You know, if you're a musician, if you're a writer, you gotta still remember that, you know, the gift of music and writing and all that's the joy, you know. So, you know, take your happiness very seriously. You know, I think the important thing in terms of the whole dialogue with the archons and all that is, like, you know, we live in a culture and we've lived in a civilization for forever where it's like a crime to be content, you know. You know, try to do it your own way. Try to be happy. Try to give that happiness and joy to other people. That's what I would say.
I think that's good advice. I mean, I think it was St. Francis of Assisi who said, singing is praying 3 times. It's really connecting with the divine. But I think you also hit it on another one. You talked about know yourself, you know, be yourself. But that's always a problem. For example, the older I get, or maybe the more gnosis I get, the more I realize how phony I am. Most of what I am is not authentic. Do you feel that way too?
Well, yeah, but again, I try not to be too heavy-handed about it. I mean, you know, if I made myself feel bad for every time I acted different in front of different friends, then I would not be that happy, because, I mean, people are different. You know, some people, you know, they really flow into things, and, you know, and you have shifting masks and stuff, but that doesn't mean that, you know, you're not genuine. You know, so I look at, you know, progress through life is kind of like, I think it's important on principle to apply non-judgment to yourself and just kind of accept that you're just like, your spirit is a beehive and your personality are the bees around it. They're just going to come and go. Like, that's how I conceive of, you know, karma, so to speak. Like, that shit's just flying around. It's going to take shape, you know, but, you know, so long as the hive is healthy, then you're all right.
I agree with you. I think that's a good point. Take it easy on yourself. The Gnostics certainly use a lot of parody and humor in their things. So yeah, definitely take it easy. But I think that's all the time we have today, Shawn. I'd like to thank you very much for coming on Aeon Byte and sharing your music and your experiences.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, an honor, and a hell of a time. Thanks, Miguel.
Likewise. Hope to have you on soon.
Thank you.
I'll cut your throat if you squeeze mine. I'll shake your hand. Butterflies will fly up out of loop with the shape of the droop of your own head swooping down, and you're out of your mind, 'cause it's running on time, and the fuel's heating up, and there's a clog in the line. So hit half the glasses on your broken watch, and hope that what you are is all that you are, and it may not be enough, but it could keep the vomit down. Yeah, the going could get rough, but you can't keep this damn vomit down. Yeah, you squeeze mine, I'll shake your hand. Butterflies will fly out from our union, and they'll see what we have shown.
If I blind my eyes to my love, I cannot protect you with my hate. Maybe you are the adversary and the friend, and if I am at war with myself, I am trampling down each border between us. Well, in that case I may become extinct like a dead nation. And so you would then conquer your sin. You would then conquer yourself. When that day comes, I won't know where to begin. Maybe you are the adversary